It was created by some of the greatest minds in gaming.
Well, Keiji Inafune is best known for his Mega Man series. He's put in a lot of time and effort into his Mega Man games.
And built upon a genre made famous by evil.
Onimusha really extended the Resident Evil formula or the template.
Its creation rivaled the production of Hollywood movies.
Onimusha's budget was huge.
We actually tried to do something that had never been done before. I figured this was a game that really needed music on a large scale. It really needs something powerful.
It looks real when you see it, and looks like a Hollywood film.
But the road wasn't always clear.
He wanted a real epic feel to the game, and he really didn't think the PlayStation was powerful enough.
But they overcame those obstacles, and its success was huge.
It's this very cool universal game that most games don't really have.
It was one of the first million-selling games on the PS2.
This is how a gaming dynasty was created. This is the history of Onimusha. It's 1999, and Sony's PlayStation is the undisputed king of the 32-bit console wars, thanks in part to the runaway success of a game called Resident Evil from Capcom. The Japanese developer decides to build on the budding survival horror genre as an industry veteran steps up to the plate.
Keiji Inafune is best known for his Mega Man series, and he's put in a lot of time and effort into his Mega Man games.
Inafune decides to take the gameplay style made famous by the Resident Evil series and steer it in a new direction.
I've always been a fan of Akira Kurosawa's samurai movies. Ever since I was a young child, I've always thought they were like super cool, and if only I could make that kind of a game. That was what we started with. Mr. Inafune brought this idea to me and said, listen, I want you to head up a game that's going to use samurais in some sort of aspect. I think that'd be very cool.
And a very unique twist is added to the plan. A famous Japanese actor is cast as the hero.
We wanted a game that would appeal to men and women. So how we got women to play the game was we used a super cool Japanese actor at that time, Kaneshiro. He was probably at the time, and could be even still now, the most popular male actor in Japan right now. And by putting him in the game, we figured we would get a lot more female gamers that would actually want to buy the game just because he's in it.
Using Takeshi Kaneshiro's likeness definitely was a big help for Onimusha, mainly because they face-mapped a Japanese star, which the Japanese public knows already, and to put him in a game and see him moving in a samurai outfit and everything, it was stirred up quite an excitement in Japan.
But it's not long before the first real battle begins.
Well, Onimusha was first planned for the PlayStation, but Funesan tried it out on the PlayStation, and in fact he was using the Mega Man Legends engine for a little bit, which was his previous 3D game for the PlayStation. But he found that it was really boring, and that the only thing you can do in a PlayStation 3D setting is to just constantly battle enemies with your sword. And he wanted more than that.
Yes, actually, we did have a version, a PS1 version. And although we were actually able to make a character that kind of resembled Kaneshiro, it wasn't enough. It wasn't to the point where you'd go like, wow, that is him. It was close, but still kind of a miss.
He wanted a story, he wanted some action, he wanted a real epic feel to the game, and he really didn't think the PlayStation was powerful enough to present what he really wanted to show.
And as we were developing the game, about halfway through the development, Sony released the specs for the PS2. And when I heard those, I was like, wow, that's amazing. If we use these specs, then in fact we can make a character that looks as real as the actual person. So you would get kind of the movie-esque feel that we probably couldn't have achieved with any hardware before that time.
The team is forced to make a very difficult decision.
実際もう PS1 しか世の中に
We'd already come this far with the PlayStation 1 version. And a lot of the staff said, we want to release it on PlayStation 1. We've already put all this work into it. We don't have to change everything over to PlayStation 2. And it was a really difficult decision. But in the end, I decided we needed to go with PlayStation 2 if we were going to come out with a new series with a bang.
That decision set the team back months. Capcom decides that Onimusha Warlords will be big and gives the game a budget to match.
Onimusha's budget was huge. It's probably Capcom's biggest budget they've ever put on a game. And in fact, it put a lot of pressure on Keiji Inafune to deliver a Class A title.
The pressure is on. Changing platforms has pushed back the schedule, and working on a new platform presents its own set of challenges. But the team at Capcom is committed to making the game a hit. So what do they do next? Research.
Originally, the game was designed based on the feudal, the Warring States Japan era and the samurais that existed then. That was the start of the game, the base that the game was founded upon. Those are the roots, I feel, of Onimusha that need to be protected in the future. So I went to a lot of different castles, a lot of temples. I visited Kyoto, which is the most traditional city that has probably the most historical artifacts and locations remaining.
And the storyline for Onimusha is fully fleshed out.
It's
the story during the warring feudal states era in Japan. And it takes place right before Oda Nobunaga, who is actually a historical figure in Japan, who tried to unite all of these different Japanese states that were separated. He came very close to doing it, but died right before he was able to do it. So what I did was I took that as the main backdrop for the evil villain of the game. Oda Nobunaga makes a pact with the devil to come back to life. And with that power, he tries to finish the job that he started out doing.
In Onimusha, the story really leaves a lot of room for the action of the game. It's really basic. You're Samanosuke, this really noble warrior, and you're doing what noble warriors do. You're saving a princess.
Princess Yuki!
From an evil demon lord who has brought the undead back to basically slaughter all of feudal Japan. You're the last hope, essentially.
The team at Capcom now has a base to build a game on, but the hard part is just beginning. By late 1999, Onimusha begins taking shape. Resident Evil fans who have heard early previews for the game are growing more and more excited about Capcom's new offering.
I was a big fan of survival horror, and then this really cool feudal Japan world was inserted into that Resident Evil mold, and that really turned me on.
I guess if I had to sum it up really quickly, the Onimusha-esque nature of the game would have to be that you can slash very quickly. It's these quick battles, slashing through the enemies, a quick pace. It all feels really good because you're just slashing through one enemy, then you go to the next one, cut him down, and you just quickly proceed through the game.
Onimusha really brought that extended the Resident Evil formula or the template for that game was the Gauntlet, where you could suck demon souls and essentially upgrade and do power-ups. There was quite a cool system where you could do lots of cool sword slashing moves.
To give Onimusha a truly cinematic feel, Capcom pushes the envelope of game production.
We actually tried to do something that had never been done before. I figured this was a game that really needed music on a large scale. It really needed something powerful, something moving, and just your typical normal background music wasn't going to cut it. So we decided we needed an orchestra, but we didn't want to just stop there.
Onimusha was probably one of the first games to really move the cinema-inspired game into the future, where they were first on PS2, so they had the DVD format to their advantage. So ultra-crisp picture, obviously, and this awesome DVD quality cinema. because they went to the masters. They went to people who actually made movies to do this. And you had the Kurosawa films, the old 1960s, 1970s black and white samurai flicks that really inspired this. And you combine that with this really cool, visceral action game. And it makes for, you know, not a really emotional experience, but a dramatic one at that.
Men, fight and die with honor!
We want to try something on an even larger scale than what a normal orchestra could do. So we had the orchestra upped in people to about 200-person orchestra working on the soundtrack or the opening for the game. That has never been done before. It was quite a task, but in the end, as you can see by the results of the first one, it was very powerful, very moving music.
The score in Onimusha, it really brought out the cinematic appeal. It really lent itself to that cinema quality of game.
And the composer they find is every bit as unique as the game they're making.
We actually decided to use a man named Samura Goichi. And this Samura Goichi is someone who's actually very established, known, talented in Japan. He's worked on several movies. He is a very capable person.
He is hard of hearing, and to come up with such an epic score like that for Onimusha is just unfathomable.
Onimusha Warlords comes out on March 14th, 2001, and Capcom gets the blockbuster it wants. It becomes the first PlayStation 2 game to sell over 1 million copies and hits 2 million copies in a year, and critics are ecstatic.
Yes, it was one of the first million-selling games on the PS2.
This way, sir.
And it is absolutely incredible. I mean, it looks real when you see it, and it looks like a Hollywood film when you see it.
You follow them through the other way.
Understand.
It had the fixed backgrounds, obviously, so you're running around in the same world where it was a very grim, very sinister universe. But then it added a lot more action to it. You weren't really limited in your bullets because you had a sword, and you could slice up demons. So it made it a lot more visceral, a lot more fun. Onimusha was just pure, exhilarating fun.
In 2002, an enhanced Xbox version is released, called Genma Onimusha.
I was also the producer on Genma Onimusha, and with that, one of the things that the game got criticized for was being too hard.
Samanosuke, what is this?
We didn't mean to be mean to the players. We didn't mean to frustrate the different players that had bought our game, but we did want to challenge them. Whenever we make a game, we try and have fun with it, make it an enjoyable experience. But whenever we challenge the player, we want to have fun with that too.
But the next move will be a full sequel. The name of this new game will be Onimusha 2: Samurai's Destiny.
Usually sequels should be better than the originals, although often they aren't. But with Onimusha 2, we had to maintain the Onimusha-esque nature of the game, yet at the same time have something there that would make the fans really say, wow, this is even better than the first one. Trying to get that in the right combination sometimes is quite difficult.
In 2, the main character is Yagyu Jubei. He also stands against Oda Nobunaga.
And once again, a famous movie star is used as the main character. But this time, the choice of actor presents a unique challenge.
Actually, with Onimusha 2, the main character was based on a famous Japanese actor named Yusaku Matsuda. Unfortunately, he passed away due to cancer quite a while ago, so we couldn't actually have him wear the motion capture suits and actually film him walking.
Actually, his last movie that he did was Black Rain with Michael Douglas. And after he did that movie, he passed away, and he was a huge star in Japan.
So we used someone who had kind of a similar build. We used them in the motion capture and then animated the rest around those images.
And to face map him and to put him in a recent modern game, it was just unheard of. It was both controversial and exciting at the same time. But when people saw the final result, it was a formula that worked.
But while a new hero and new story are added, the basic gameplay remains pretty much the same.
Onimusha 2 was more just a bare-bones sequel. It didn't really step forward too much. It was just continuing the franchise where, Onimusha 2 was really closed. It was all fixed backgrounds, pre-rendered. So, yeah, Onimusha 2, just typical sequel, I would say. A couple additions here and there to appease the fans, but that's pretty much it.
Onimusha 2 is released in March 2002. The game is another hit. In Japan, it sells 1 million copies in only 3 weeks. But some gamers aren't totally satisfied.
Unfortunately, it used pre-rendered backgrounds, which are famous in the Resident Evil series as well. A lot of Americans didn't like it because America is a country where you need to have full 3D polygons in order to hit it big with an action game.
Work begins right away on Onimusha 3, but this time Capcom plans to make some serious changes. By 2003, Onimusha and Onimusha 2 are both hits, but critics aren't happy with what they consider to be a lack of innovation in the series. Capcom decides to tackle those complaints head-on and make Part 3 the biggest of them all.
This is the graphic department.
One of the first changes made is a shift to a fully 3D world.
This is the background effects. We're going to make good on the mistakes we had with the first one, and that is the pre-rendered backgrounds are now gone and have been replaced with full 3D polygons.
In Onimusha 3, you have a 3D environment. You have a 3D camera that works more like a movie camera than it does a typical 3D platformer camera, where it trails the character to give it more of a cinematic quality. It's this very cool quality that still has the presence of what Onimusha 1 and 2 are about.
And using another famous actor for the lead role is now standard procedure.
The Onimusha series has always been famous for having a famous actor in some way, shape, or form. It's kind of a symbol of the series, and even if I didn't want to put a famous actor in, I would still have to. The upper management would make me.
But this time around, they need someone with worldwide appeal.
With 3, we wanted to go more international. We needed somebody who was famous in Europe, America, Japan. There are very few people that fit that mold. Also, the game being set in Paris, we decided we wanted a French actor that actually have made their way to Japan and that are famous in America. Very few. Matter of fact, there's only one. That is John Reno. That is why we decided to use him.
Using John Reno's likeness in the game was a big surprise, not just to the Japanese gamers, but to American gamers who have seen him in stuff like The Professional and stuff like that, and to see an actor that you recognize, because these other 2 Japanese characters, not many Americans would know, but with John Reno, you're definitely appealing to a wider audience, and it was a big shock to everybody.
Using John Reno is just like any director in a movie using a star. We want him to place emphasis on the character he is being. John Reno is maybe a hook, a selling point, something that can get people to buy the game, and initially when they play the game, they realize, hey, I'm being John Reno. But that's only for about the first 5 minutes, and later we want them to actually get into the story as this character, Jacques Brun.
In Part 3, Jacques Braun teams up with Samanosuke from the first Onimusha to bring an end to the threat of Nobunaga once and for all.
3 takes place using the same character that was in number 1, Samanosuke. And Samanosuke follows Oda Nobunaga all the way to Honnoji Temple. He tries to finish this long climactic battle. So number 3 wraps it all up as Samanosuke fights Nobunaga for the final time.
To bring these 2 heroes together, a little bit of science fiction is brought into play.
You have this little time travel element. You have all these really awkward-looking modern weapons set against Samanosuke's steel sword. It's kind of a cool element, bullets versus steel, old versus new. You have the whole French angle, and then the feudal Japan angle, modern-day settings. It's this very cool universal game that most games don't really have. But this is really dynamic.
The Onimusha franchise has worldwide appeal.
There's that stigma with Onimusha where it transcends language barriers, and the fact that they use this famous Japanese actor who happened to be dead really made it hit home with Japanese audiences. And like maybe that didn't really matter to American audiences who were playing the game.
Capcom capitalizes by introducing more games like Onimusha Tactics and Blade Warriors, a 2D fighting game.
And then you have the Onimusha, license, which is going to be made into a movie supposedly in the next couple of years. While they say Onimusha 3 is the last true sequel to the franchise, it seems like something that will keep going on and on and on. It's Capcom. They'll figure out a way to keep it going, even if they say this is the last game.
And Onimusha's influence lives on. Its gameplay is copied by other developers.
Actually, one of the features that we are kind of proud of in the game, we have the little sub-quest in the game called the Makukukan.
Won't you go to the Dark Realm?
If you're going to translate that, it would be something like Magic World or Underworld. As you proceed through the game, you're given the option to go down in these little sub-quests, but you don't have to.
I hope you come back alive.
Giving the users a chance to either do that or not provides a little more variety to the game. We have seen with some other games that have come out quite recently, even including the new Zelda. And actually, we are very surprised that that section of the game would influence so many other different games in the way that it has. Most of the artists, the sound designers, most of the people that come to Capcom are all people that have a lot of pride in their work. They have a specific image that they want to go by, that they want to create, and they're not going to stop until it's perfect. These people are in charge of designing the motion for all the characters. Most people would think that motion designers are always men, but as you can see, here's a female motion designer right here. She's actually very good. This is where they make the effects for the game. And as you can see, there are two beautiful women right next to me that are working. And here's another beautiful woman.